Alright, now that you know how split frequency works, I want to show you how to record an action for both 8-bit and 16-bit image so you can speed up your workflow. And like before, I'm just going to record it here. I'm not going to give you the action so you can record it with me, and therefore it's kind of my way of giving you incentive to learn and not just copy what I've done. So let's start off by opening up our actions palette, and I'm going to create a new action. And let's call this split frequency 8-bit, because we're going to create another one for 16-bit, and click record. I'm going to collapse my actions palette for a moment, and as you can remember, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this background layer 2 times. So Control J 2 times will copy the background layer. I'm going to call this one low, and I'm going to call this one high. Now I'm going to deactivate the high. I'm going to click on the low. I'm going to go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. I'm going to apply a percentage. Now I don't think this it matters what percentage you apply here, because we're going to make it an action in such a way that each time it will ask you to manually enter Gaussian blur radius. So if you're working on a different image, you don't want to always apply the same radius. That's why this is pretty much relevant. But for this image, remembering from the last video, we're going to use the 21 pixels radius. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to switch back to my high layer. I'm going to activate that one. I'm going to go to image, apply image. And since this is an 8-bit image, I'm going to, for source, I'm going to choose my split frequency PSD. Here I'm going to choose under layer, I'm going to choose low. Under subtract, this remains RGB and inverted is off. Subtract is under blending. Opacity is 100%, preserve transparency and mask are off. Scale is 2 and offset is 128. Once you have all those settings entered, you can click OK. And now you switch from normal to linear light for the high layer, like so. But now the next thing we need to do is we need to copy the high layer to its own one more time. So as you can remember, we're going to use it for backup because we're going to be working most of the time on the high layer. We would always like at least ability to make 2 passes. So I'm going to hold my Alt or Option key and get between 2 layers. That's going to allow me to clip it. I'm going to select my high copy, set it to normal. I'm going to create a layer mask, click on the layer, and I'm going to select both of these, actually all these 3 layers. I'm going to Alt or Option drag it to new group icon, and I'm going to name it split frequency 8-bit. Click OK. Okay, now I'm going to I think I have everything, so I'm going to leave it the way it is. And I'm going to open up my actions palette one more time, and I'm going to set stop recording. Click on the action. I'm going to delete what we just created to test the action, both group and content, and I'm going to play back the action. Well, that's all fine and good. It created a group with all the layers and everything, but we have one problem. It didn't ask us to enter the settings for apply image. It didn't ask us to change the settings for Gaussian blur, which is exactly what we want. So I'm gonna delete that, and I'm gonna, here where it says Gaussian blur, you have this little option here. It says toggle dialog on and off. I'm going to click on that one, and the next one is apply image. So that's the 2 dialog boxes that I want to affect on image per image basis. And when I apply back the action now, it's going to work all the way to Gaussian blur. It's going to ask me to enter a number. I'm going to click OK. It's going to ask me to apply image, and that's also fine, and it's going to end up working all the way down. So that's the way the action should be. I'm going to delete that whole group and everything. I'm going to switch to another copy of the image, which is now in 16-bit mode, and we're going to create another action for this. Same thing as we did before, split frequency, and instead of 8 we're going to say 16-bit. Now I'm doing this just to illustrate a point, because since it's going to ask you to enter apply image settings, you can only create one action and then change the settings of the apply image when you work on 16-bit as opposed to 8-bit. But for demonstration purposes, I'm going to create both actions here. So same thing as I did before, right? I'm going to copy the background layer 2 times with Control J or Command J. I'm going to call this one low. I'm going to call this one high. I'm going to deactivate the high for a second, switch down to low, go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. I'm going to apply the same razors as I did before. And now I'm going to activate the high, switch on it, go to image, apply image, and here I'm going to switch some settings. Layer I'm going to set to low, and instead of subtract I'm going to switch to add. It's going to scale and offset 2, and so this is going to be invert, and scale is going to be 2, offset 0. This remained just as it did before. So these will be the settings for 16-bit. Now I click OK, and I switch to linear light, make a copy of the high, Alt or Option, drag my mouse between the 2 layers so I can clip it. I change this to normal blend mode. I add a layer mask, switch on it, select all the layers, Option or Alt drag it to the new group icon, and call this 16-bit. Click OK, and same thing as I did before, I'm going to activate my dialogues for Gaussian blur and apply image, and I'm going to stop recording. Switch on the action itself, delete what we just created, group and content, and let's play back the action to see if it works. It asks me for Gaussian blur, it should ask me for apply image as well. Exactly, remember the settings for the last time. I don't think it remembers it always, so you're gonna have to manually switch them. That's why I said you can only create one action and then manually switch. And that's how it works for 16-bit. It's the only difference. And I can delete this now, and hopefully you can create the same set of actions or just one action as I mentioned, and apply this to your own workflow.